Over the next 3 days, you were seen on CCTV to walk up and down the promenade in Bournemouth, especially at night. I am satisfied that this was to locate the CCTV cameras and identify the best location for your planned killing. At 22:43, you left the Silver Howe guest house to achieve what you had been planning to do. CCTV shows you walking up and down the promenade on the 24th of May, prowling, I find, for the right victim and time for your killing. Why Amie Gray and Leanne Miles? Prior to your conviction, you gave no account or explanation for your actions. You made no comment in interview with the police and did not give evidence at your trial, where you were convicted on overwhelming evidence. You admitted your guilt for the first time to Dr. Rothenberg, a psychiatrist who has prepared a report at the court's request for your sentence. You clearly should have pleaded guilty to these offences, avoiding the need for Miss Miles and the families of your victims to go through the stress of a trial. Your refusal to do so shows not only a complete lack of remorse, but in my view also that you sought the notoriety you hoped a trial would give you. Even now, you have not told the truth. I reject the account that you gave to Dr. Rothenberg of going to Bournemouth for a holiday, walking late on the promenade because you didn't like crowds, and committing the murder on impulse. As I have said, the clear evidence is that you planned to kill and went to Bournemouth to do so. I am satisfied from reading the report of Dr. Rothenberg that you chose Amie Gray and Leanne Miles because you have a grievance against society as a whole and women in particular. As women, as they sat where they were also more vulnerable and less able to fight back. You would have the element of surprise in your favour. They were a little distance from anyone else. It was late at night with few people left in that area. It was not far from your planned escape route. All of these things, together with your desire to kill, identified them as the victims of this utterly senseless killing. Your assault on each of them must have been terrifying, as each realised what you were doing to her. No one could have heard their screams, chillingly captured on the audio of CCTV footage during the trial, and thought otherwise. Having attached them, you ran from the scene, and early the following morning left Bournemouth to resume your life in Croydon. You disposed of the knife you'd used and the clothes you had been wearing, which have never been found. No doubt you thought you had committed the perfect crime. Why did you do as you did? Dr. Rothenberg's report sheds some light on that. You have experienced difficulty in your life socialising and communicating with others by the reason of the fact you have some autistic traits, although you do not have autistic spectrum disorder. It seems that you have felt humiliated and embarrassed by repeated rejections or perceived rejections of any advances you have made, particularly towards girls, which over time has resulted in a deeply suppressed rage directed towards society and women in particular. You developed an obsessional fascination with violence, horror, crime, and the mind of those who kill, and a deep-seated urge for revenge against society. In Dr. Rothenberg's view, you identified yourself with the mind of a killer because you wished to feel the power of which you felt society had robbed you by rejecting and humiliating you. The idea of being recognised as a dangerous killer became appealing to you. It was with that mindset that you killed Amie Gray and attempted to kill Leanne Miles. Your autistic traits afford you no mitigation. You knew what you were doing and you knew it was wrong. You knew the consequences of your actions. I have no doubt that you are an extremely dangerous young man and are likely to remain so. That crime left a family devastated by Amie's loss. A family understandably struggling to understand what has happened and to cope. At the time of her death, she was 34 years of age and much loved by her close family and by her friends. She was clearly an exceptional young woman who was full of life and always there when anyone needed her. Her cousin Megan speaks of Amie being her safe place, making her feel loved and welcome whenever they were together. Amie was brave, strong and independent, always striving to be better. She was a carer for her 90-year-old grandmother who has Alzheimer's. Her mother speaks of the great future she had ahead of her. She was happy, having recently been made a head coach of Dorset futsal, which she loved, and for which she had received an award which made her justifiably proud. She had just started to plan a new work venture. She had much to live for, not least her young daughter, who must now face a life without her mother's love and support. This was the person whose life you took in your act of random brutality. You must face the consequences of your actions in the punishment I impose upon you today, but I recognise that nothing this court does can bring Amie back, and her family must forever live with her loss. That said, her warmth and personality continues to shine. As you serve your sentence over the many years you are in custody and are quickly forgotten, she will live on in the hearts of those she inspired and who loved her. I turn to your sentence. For the grave offence of murder, there is only one sentence prescribed by law, and that is imprisonment for life. That is the sentence I shall impose upon you in due course. However, I am required to determine the minimum period you should serve in prison before you are eligible to be considered for release on parole. It is most important that you and everyone concerned with this case should understand what in fact this means. The minimum term is not a fixed term after which you will automatically be released, but the minimum term that you will spend in custody before your case can be considered by the parole board, and it will be for the parole board to say at that time whether or not you will be released. If they say you should not, you will remain in custody. If and when you are released, you will be subject to licence, and this will be the case for the rest of your life. If for any reason your licence were to be revoked, you would be recalled to prison to serve your life sentence in custody. In coming to the appropriate minimum term for the offence of murder, I must first decide where this case falls within Schedule 21 to the Sentencing Act 2020. There are no factors which would place this offence within paragraph 2 of the schedule. I have considered whether the combination of the two offences for which I am to sentence you places the case in paragraph 3. Although there are some features which would justify such an approach, I have decided that the offence falls more appropriately into paragraph 4. I propose to reflect the offence of attempted murder by a significant uplift in the minimum term I impose for the murder offence. You took at least one knife to the scene which you used to stab and kill Amie Gray. The starting point for the minimum term is therefore one of 25 years. The offence is aggravated by a substantial degree of premeditation and planning. I am satisfied that you were motivated in part by your attitude to women. A degree of mental and physical suffering was inflicted on Miss Gray before her death. I turn to the offence of attempted murder. I place the offence within category 2B of the sentencing guideline. It is a case of high culpability by reason of you taking a knife to the scene, intending to use it to kill, and you had planned and premeditated the murder. I consider that you caused serious physical harm to Leanne Miles by inflicting the knife wounds upon her, causing her lung to collapse. If sentencing for this offence alone, the starting point under the guideline would be 25 years, with a range of 20 to 30 years imprisonment. Were I sentencing you for this offence alone, I would sentence you as a dangerous offender, as defined by the Sentencing Act. However, the risk you pose will be managed by the minimum term I impose for the murder offence. For that reason, I will impose a concurrent, determinate sentence for the attempted murder of Miss Miles. As I have said, I will increase the minimum term to reflect that offence. I take into account all that has been said on your behalf. You are still young. You are now 21 years of age and were aged 20 at the time of the offences. I will reflect your youth in the sentence I impose, but there is no evidence that you are any less mature than would be expected at your age. Dr. Rothenberg, in his lengthy and helpful report, has raised no concern about your maturity. You have no previous convictions, although that fact can carry very little weight in offences of this seriousness. As I have already said, you have found life difficult by reason of your autistic traits. I accept Dr. Rothenberg's conclusion that this impaired your judgment and that once you had considered it appropriate to kill another, you would have seen it through. I do not find, however, that this lowers your culpability for these serious offences. As I have already said, you were capable of making a rational decision. You knew what you were doing and that it was wrong. You knew the consequences of your actions. You may, since your time in custody, have recognised that you need help, but there is little mitigation in the fact that you have now accepted your guilt. As I have said, you needlessly put Miss Gray's family and Miss Miles through the additional distress of a trial. You continue to minimise your actions. In truth, there is little, if any, mitigation. Had I been sentencing you for the murder alone, the minimum term would have been one of 34 years, less the time you have spent on remand. The attempted murder of Leanne Miles requires a substantial uplift to that term. The minimum term I impose on count 1, taking into account the 300 days you have spent in custody before today, is 39 years and 64 days imprisonment. On count 2, the concurrent sentence is 30 years imprisonment. Stand up. Nasen Saadi, for the murder of Amie Gray, I sentence you to life imprisonment. You will serve a minimum term of 39 years and 64 days. Thereafter, it will be for the parole board to decide when, if ever, you should be released. If you are ever released, you will remain on licence for the rest of your life. For the attempted murder of Leanne Miles, the concurrent sentence is 30 years imprisonment. For the offence of failing to comply with a notice requiring disclosure, the sentence is one of 21 months in concurrent. The total sentence is therefore one of life imprisonment with a minimum term of 39 years and 64 days. The statutory surcharge can be drawn up in the appropriate amount. Go down.